Welcome to the Phoenix Suns Solar Panel Show, podcast, whatever the hell you want to call us. My name is Tim Tompkins, joined as always, let's go with Greg Esposito this time because it is Espo and Company after all.
Oh, oi.
And managing editor of this little website called Bright Side of the Sun, Mr. Dave King.
Yo, how's it going? Yeah, my girlfriend calls it, when we watch games, she calls it the basketball show. So you can't use show, Tim. It's got to be podcast.
Oh, well, so it's been a pretty good week. The Suns coming off a win in the Garden, even though they were without a couple of their best players, the Celtics, that is. It was pretty nice to see
Suns
a win.
Were without Kelly Oubre, too.
And actually, because I don't know the answer to this, were they also without Cam Johnson, or did Cam Johnson just get a DNP?
They were without Cam Johnson. There's no way Cam Johnson. Oh my God, that second quarter lineup that had Ty Jerome and Elliot Kobo and Javon Carter out there with Devin Booker and Aaron Baines was just horrific. So they wouldn't do that if they didn't have to. So Cam Johnson was out as well as Kelly Oubre.
It was amazing. It was like they were waving a white flag without actually having to do it. Like
they had a 16-point lead that got down to there was a 13-0 run by the Celtics before Monty said, "Okay, maybe this isn't working."
And that was in 30 seconds with those guys on.
It was amazing.
It was funny. I kind of took it as the Monty's like, screw it. We're up 16. I've always wanted to try this lineup. Let's go ahead and try it now.
Nobody would want to try that lineup. Devin Booker was the power forward.
There's a couple things that just confuses me about the team. One is I don't know if I've just been scarred by watching Ty Jerome's play so far this season, but every time he gets on the court, I just think to myself, please no.
I do that with Elliot Kobo.
I like Ellie. And then Javon Carter, anytime the ball is in his hands for the last shot of the quarter, it just drives me insane because I don't want him setting up offense for anyone himself. I don't want him to have the ball at the end of quarters. And even it kind of surprises me because you'll have like Tyler Johnson out there. I'm like, why isn't the ball in Tyler Johnson's hand?
I'd like for him never to take shots, regardless if it's the end of the quarter or not, or have the ball in his hands. This just shows it shows one of the biggest flaws of the Suns team, and I know in part it's impacted by injury because you don't have Kaminsky when Oubre's out. Bridges shifts to that starting lineup, but they do not have.
Frank was out.
They do not have enough depth on this team to overcome. Multiple starters having a rough game. Luckily, the last two games in New York and Boston, that wasn't the case. Starters showed up, and they had 3 25-plus scorers for the first time since 2007, December of 2007, in that New York game, and then they followed up again in Boston doing the same thing. So they're going to have to rely heavily on this starting lineup to continue to win them games because the bench just can't contribute right now. And if there is anywhere that this team really needs to make a move, it's to find solid veteran bench guys that can keep a lead if need be.
Well, we're going to talk about trades here in a later segment, so I'll refrain my thoughts on that for a moment. But man, when Ricky Rubio got elbowed in the face and went down hard in the first, I don't know if it was first or second half, and then I was just thinking, God damn, if he's got a broken orbital bone or something like that, like Joe Johnson did in the playoffs back in 2005, and can't play for a few weeks, the Suns it's over. So
the Atlanta game showed that. I mean, right. I'm all for he had every right to miss that game to be there for the birth of his first son, but it showed you how much at a deficit this team is without Ricky Rubio because they didn't really address the backup point guard spot. They did what they needed to from a starting perspective, but they were basically banking on Ty Jerome and Tyler Johnson to provide anything, have a pulse back there, and that just hasn't happened.
Yeah, exactly. You've got it's just so tough to watch anyone but Ricky Rubio running this team. Javon Carter, like you said, really doesn't run an offense. He dribbles, and then he tries to get himself into with as much jumping clearance as I do into a jump shot. with time running out on the clock. Elie Okobo just passes it away. He's afraid to take any shots. And Ty Jerome, he looks like some dude that just gave a uniform out in the stands and said, go on out there.
I do like Ellie's game a bit more, I think, than you guys do, though.
No, man. And here's what I've been saying lately, and this is probably a little harsh, and I admit it. But Ellie is like the opposing guard's best friend. He's always right there on your hip pocket. He's always real close to you, but he never hits you, never gets in your way, never stops you from doing what you want. He's like your best friend, because that's exactly where Ellie is. He lets anyone score on him, and he's always a couple feet away, just standing there watching it.
The perfect backup point guard is the Josh Jackson tax in Memphis right now. De'Anthony Melton. He would have been nice as the backup point guard right now.
Don't get me started.
I spent all Saturday morning putting together and I don't do this. I'm not a guy who looks back and says, what if? But I spent all Saturday morning putting together a what if roster, just starting with the 2018 draft. I don't know if I'll ever publish it.
It's just sad that you had
one
to
of those
give
is
up
you don't
that
trade
guy.
Anthony Melton and you just cut Josh Jackson.
Yeah. It's sad
but you can't
that
cut,
was your
but
cost.
then you don't have the money, right? So
yeah.
Somebody also bringing up Buckdog in YouTube chat. We should have kept Shaq Harrison. I will always remain a fan of Shaq.
Man,
I like
Shaq
Shaq a lot.
Is not a freaking player. Good. He's not a point guard. If we're talking in context of backup point guards, that is not Shaq Harrison. I don't know if the guy's thrown a scoring pass in his career. He's not a backup point guard. What he is he's a whirling dervish guy out on the perimeter. He's a 6'4" guy who will get you steals. He'll do some crazy stuff, but he can't even get big minutes for other teams either. So I know we have these irrational affinities. I actually liked Xavier Dowdell better than anyone, even his family probably back in the day. But that doesn't mean they're good players. Now, De'Anthony Melton is a good player, although he's also not really a backup point guard. He doesn't play even point guard for them. They got Tyus Jones and John Morant playing all the point guard minutes. So if we're talking backup point guard, it's not either any of those guys.
Well,
it's not anyone the Suns have either.
You also, there's very few Corey Josephs in the league, right? Like, there comes a point in which you just have to say the backup point guard is going to be a flawed player of some point, otherwise he would be a starting point guard. And how much flaw?
Yeah, but I would like kind of flawed to be something less flawed than I can't run a single offensive set.
Yeah, I'd like, he's extremely short, or anything other than can't actually do the job of a point guard that the Suns have. Steve Blake is the best backup point guard on the bench right now.
Exactly. If we could get, he looks good too, man. When he's out there doing warm-ups with the players. I'd love to see him just suit up one night and just see if he could slip in with the Ty Jerome jersey on.
I mean, in all seriousness, you guys really haven't thought Elie Okobo has played reasonably well lately? No.
And not as a point guard. I mean, he's been all right offensively.
He got the start in Atlanta. He had 0 points and 3 assists in 21 minutes. And Monty is constantly pulling him out for missed assignments.
It's just he's a major project still, and not one that I'd like to see them sink a lot of time into. There's a reason that he was a guy that they didn't really want to keep, but they didn't want to eat the money either. So they're just kind of stuck with him right now.
Was it Manny C over on YouTube? He said Ty Jerome should be getting more time. I completely agree. He should absolutely be getting more time in the G League.
Yeah,
he really should be spending more time in the G League. I'm not against that at all, because there's a lot of Suns first-round picks doing well in the G League lately.
but look,
okay.
I have no problem with Ty Jerome spending some time there. The injuries early on and everything, maybe I'm not ready to give up on him completely, but I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him working out the kinks at the NBA level. Right. Let him go down to Northern Arizona.
Yeah, I fully expect that year 2 Ty Jerome is going to look a lot different, a lot more like the first-round pick we expected. I think he just needed some time to adjust to the NBA, but the guy has skills. We saw it in preseason. We saw it Well, we didn't see it in summer league, but we saw it in preseason. The guy's got some real skills. He's got some really good pick and roll ball handling. He is the backup point guard we need, but we need the third-year Ty Jerome, not the first-year Ty Jerome, because he is the guy. He can run an offense. He can get the hesitation. He can get defenders on his hip. He can get his shot. He can do what you need him to do. He can't play much defense, but he'll get a couple of steals, and so he'll look better as a defender on the advanced stats line for the stat nerds than he should. And he may never be a starting player. When I think of him, and this could be wrong, but when I think of him, I think of a Luke Ridnour type.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with it. He's good. Like Luke Ridnour started for some bad teams in his career, and he was considered at one time a really good backup point guard for teams until he just, he wrote out his career. Anymore. I think he made it 8 or 10. What's that?
Until he just wasn't anymore.
Yeah.
Well, but he also had like an 8 or 10 year career, and at some point, even the little athleticism you have is gone. So, no, I think Ty Jerome has a career ahead of him, just not this season. And I think the Suns, we'll talk about in the next segment. But
it was short-sighted to expect him to be the backup point guard too.
I don't know. There's some rookies who are doing pretty well out in the league, especially running point guard these days.
Yeah. Well, when they're taking number 2 overall, that makes it a lot easier. When you're taking 21st. I think you're expecting 24th. A lot out of, or 24th, excuse me. You're expecting a lot out of a guy.
True.
So we haven't done a call to action.
The guy who went 21st is doing pretty well too, but we don't need to talk about that.
We haven't done a call to action for this in a while, but if you're listening on the podcast right now and you want to leave us a review, we'd really appreciate it, especially if it's 5 stars. It really does go a long way, and Greg might even one day read them on the show.
Max.
If you're a host of another show and leaving 2-star reviews, you can go screw yourself. All right.
Even if you've got the namesake of another person on another show, then it's cool. It's cool. We love all the feedback we get, even if it's a fun 2-star one.
2-star review
from another host of another Suns podcast. Way to be petty, though, guys. So taking a look at not you either. I'm talking about the people that are leaving those reviews. Anyways, taking a look at where the Suns are right now out in the West. Pretty good week. They've won 6 of their last 10 games. 18-24. They're sitting 9th. They are 2 games back of the 8th seed, which is held currently by the Memphis Grizzlies, who have won 8 of their last 10 games, but 7 games straight, which kind of blows my damn mind. Coming up this week, they have 2 games versus the Spurs, who are currently in the 10th spot as of recording this episode, and 1 against the Grizzlies. A really big week for the Suns.
It is. There's Tankathon.com, I believe it is, said the Suns have the most difficult schedule the rest of the way out of anybody.
But they also said the first half was going to be one of the most difficult, and it turned out to be fairly easy.
Yeah, that's what I want to know, too. So how can they have the most difficult first half and the most difficult second half?
Because they were basing the first half on projections. They're basing the second half on what's actually happened so far in the season.
No, I think the second half projection is probably more accurate, right, than basing it on last year's records, because that's what a lot of those preseason predictions did, for sure. Now, it is also true that 80% of the league is the same year over year as far as roughly in the wins area. So it's not bad to use last year's records to do next year projections. I get it. But even in the middle of the first half of the season, it's NBA.com, John Schumann does a strength of schedule thing, as well as basketballreference.com does a strength of schedule thing that's live, that's using current season information, and they go a little bit deeper by saying, basically, especially John Schumann does, based on rest days before games and stuff like that, and John Schumann was saying the Suns' schedule wasn't the easiest in the first half. It was in the top 10 most difficult. It's just been easy the last month, and that's what's contributed to the Suns' strength of schedule looking easier than it should have been. And also West teams not being as good this year, right? Portland has not been as good. San Antonio has not been as good. This has been kind of a weird first half. And if you look at that strength of schedule, saying the Suns ended up with the easiest, it's only 0.5%. Like there's only about 0.5% difference between the easiest and the hardest schedules because they all play each other.
Yeah.
So there's that. Now, predicting the rest of the year, it is going to be more accurate because they're basing it on this year's results. The things that are variables, obviously, are that teams are not tanking yet that are going to tank. Some of these 7 teams that are fighting for the 8th seed in the West are going to stop trying as hard.
Injury comes up that you can't
Injuries
really
come up. You can't predict and stuff like that. But having said all that, yes, the Suns have always been projected to have a difficult, very difficult February. But heck, if you're going to beat the Celtics on the road, then maybe it's not as difficult as it sounded.
Well, look, the bottom line is if this team wants to stay in this race, they're going to have to win games against good teams. I mean, it's
right.
It's that simple.
If you want
it doesn't
to make
matter
the playoffs, you have to be able to beat playoff teams.
Yeah, it's like it does not matter what the strength of schedule says or not. You're going to have to go out there and you have to win some games that you're technically not supposed to according to Vegas or the line. You're just going to have to go out there and beat better teams than you to get in this 8th spot. And that's what Memphis has done. They've gone out, they've won games that people didn't expect them to, and the Suns are going to have to do that. And this week is the start to that. You're going to have to take at least one from San Antonio to keep them behind you, and you're going to have to win that game against Memphis to start making some noise here.
A perfect example is that just a week ago, when the Suns dropped into 13th or so in the West, because all those teams are separated by just a couple of games, we're like, oh, all right, it's over.
Yeah.
Right? And now all of a sudden the Suns are 9th in the West again after just having one good week. And they are clearly, only 2 games off of Memphis, who's on a crazy hot streak that obviously Memphis is not going to win all their games for the rest of the...
You mean they're not going to win 80% of their games the rest of the way?
Yeah. Right. So this is still a wide open race, and it is, like you said, Greg, extremely important to at least step on at least one game from the Spurs,
and
if
look,
not both.
You can't keep losing games like the Hawks game. That's this. You have to beat the teams that you are legitimately better than. I understand you didn't have Ricky Rubio in that game, but you've got to rise above.
They need to make a trade for a backup point guard,
which we'll get into.
Yep. And speaking of one thing that has really contributed, I think, to some of these wins, but also has just, at least for me, been really nice to watch, is Deandre Ayton has been really damn good, both on the offensive end, but noticeably on the defensive end. And for the first time, at least for myself, during his short career with the Suns, I can actually just enjoy watching him play because he's been that damn good. Over the last 3 games, the Suns are 17 points better when he is on the court for 100 possessions. He's averaged 24 points, 15 rebounds, going to the line 5 times a game, which for Ayton, huge improvement. Hitting 93% of his free throws, 2 blocks with only a foul and a half. I mean, Ayton has been good. And I know, Dave, you put up a poll that I'm sure you want to touch on the results for that. But before we do, just Ayton has been good this week.
I'm not the stats guy here, but I had to look up something because people are like, oh, all of a sudden he's showing he cares. It's yada yada. He's just been different offensively. Part of this is Monty Williams has adjusted the offense, right? I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but in totality of this season, 67% of Deandre Ayton's shots have come 9 feet or closer to the basket, right? Over the last 2 games when he's been dominating in New York and then in Boston, 78% of those shots have come within 9 feet or closer to the rim. They are getting him the ball in the post. They're feeding him down there and taking advantage of his athleticism to be able to beat guys. And then in Boston, he got to the line 11 times, which was a huge part of that, and because he's banging down low. They're not running that horn set a lot where he's winding up stepping out and shooting long jumpers. They're getting him the ball where he can dominate, and that's the bigger factor here to me. It's not that Monty Williams benched him and all of a sudden something clicked in DeAndre Ayton's head. It's that they're using him the way that he needs to be used. They're getting him the ball where he can just beat up on guys down low, and it's been a thing of beauty. And to your point, Tim, he's been fully engaged on the defensive end, with the exception of that Gordon Hayward missed assignment last night at the end of the game that could have been catastrophic. But overall, he is locked in there as well. So it's been fun to watch, but I think Monty Williams deserves credit for altering the offense somewhat and getting the ball closer to the hoop.
Yeah, and also the defense was originally designed to maximize Ayton's ability, because you got to keep it simple. You got to give him an opportunity to succeed, and Ayton can't be stuck in no man's land on pick and rolls all the time. So he's got to have a mission. His mission is either to drop into the paint or it's to fight hard, to set hard picks over the screen, or at least slow down the defender over the screen. He has to choose one. He can't get stuck in the middle. So Monty's scheme has been drop all the time, and that's helped. And he has been very good at defending the rim. So in the paint, and I think that's admirable.
He's actually I don't have the stat in front of me, but he leads the league in the difference of opponents shooting within 6 feet of the basket. So opponents are shooting 16% worse than their career averages by the basket. When
that's what I was just looking up.
It's better than Gobert, Ibaka. Shoot a couple of other. I mean, it's like better than everybody basically, because he leads the league in it. But he's been really good. He's also been good out on the perimeter when he does get switched out. I think he's been pretty good against guys that are a bit faster. The missed defensive assignment that Greg was referring to, was that Ayton or was that Booker? I think both those guys screwed up. There was another play at the end of a Kings game not too long ago with Harrison Barnes. I don't remember who exactly was out there on the court for that. You want the team as a whole not to blow those assignments. But I think just the fact that Ayton is now closing games defensively speaks a lot, especially when you have Baines out there on the court, who's a very good defensive player.
And Ayton also on the offensive end. I mean, he sucks so much toward the paint when he's in there. As he's rolling to the paint, they have to tag him. They have to pay attention to where Ayton's going, and so that makes the shooters even more open than they have been, and they've been pretty open this year. And so the Suns are finally starting to make some threes. It's just amazing how much better the Phoenix Suns look when they make some open threes.
Well, and
they've been one of the worst in the league on wide open threes, making them, draining them, and suddenly now they look a lot better when they make a few.
Well, Dave, and you're totally right. There's a gravity to Deandre Ayton. As he rolls to the basket, guys pull in, and it does just make that offense easier for everybody else on the court. And that's what you envision, and that's why getting the ball that much closer to the hoop has been so important, because now teams are forced to collapse that way. They're throwing more lobs to him. It's just, this is the way they should have been using him all along. They didn't do.
Well, they've only had 12 games.
I get it. I'm referring to last year as well, which wasn't Monty. That was obviously Igor. But there's something to the way that they've been utilizing him lately that is just putting him in a position to succeed, which is exciting to watch, because this is what we've all been waiting for, is just to see him use those raw physical skills to his advantage as he still learns the other parts of his game. That's not to say eventually he shouldn't shoot as well, but he's taking advantage of those physical gifts right now, and that's what everybody's wanted to see.
So could I take a few seconds to do my weekly old man whines at Twitter?
Please do. That's what we're here for.
So the Suns have back-to-back exciting wins. These are two of their better wins. Just the margin over the Knicks. They hadn't had a 20-point win in a while. And then on Saturday night, the big win over the Celtics it wasn't quite as close as Marcus Smart made it to be, as far as getting down to. I mean, it seemed like, oh my God, how can you possibly get within a possession here? And Marcus Smart found a way to do it. So good on him. But these are two big wins, and Deandre Ayton was huge in both of them. He had 26 and 21, and a huge factor in the win against the Knicks, and then 26 and 15 against the Celtics, huge factor on both ends. And yet there are those on Twitter who were pointing out literally, and don't say nobody literally did this because they did, pointing out, man, if DeAndre Ayton hadn't lost Gordon Hayward on that lob, then and if Gordon Hayward had made that easy layup, Ayton would have been the GOAT. No, you don't call out one defensive play and call a guy a GOAT. You wouldn't say he'd be killed on Twitter. You wouldn't say people would not be remembering this as a good game off of one play like that. That was a scramble play off a timeout called by an excellent coach. And you're right. You don't know if that was supposed to be Booker. I mean, why would Ayton's assignment be to track Gordon Hayward around the perimeter? Obviously, it's a switchy situation, and he might have made a mistake, but that is not like the game-changing mistake. Ayton did so many great things in that game to even get the Suns the big lead that they needed to hold on to with Gordon Hayward on that lob play.
And the only Dave, the only reason I said that was because Ayton after the game took the credit and the blame on that in a quote. I don't know if it was his assignment or not.
Well, that's fine if that was his responsibility on there. I'm just saying, even if it was, even if it was his responsibility, that's one play off a really well called timeout that had a lot of switching going on and picks going on. I thought that was. It's petty to say that. You might as well. What you really should do is blame Devin Booker for doing the clear path foul that even got the Celtics closer like this, because they got 5 points off of that possession too. So, I mean, the Marcus Smart orchestrated 2 different 5-point swings, possessions for the Celtics in the final minute and a half, and give credit for that. Give Marcus Smart credit for that. Don't blame any Suns players if something hadn't gone as well. It's kind of nice seeing another team do something wrong in closing seconds. So this is Old Man Yells at Twitter. Maybe we should just appreciate the dude for who he is and not try to go back and watch replays and find his mistakes.
Well, this is the same platform. Didn't you run a poll where they said they weren't going to be happy unless he got 20
literally
on
Friday, I ran a poll on Twitter that got 1,100 votes, by the way, over 24 hours. And I said, what do you think of Deandre Ayton's 2020 game? 2020 game. And I said, should it be the norm? Or like the answers were, it should be the norm or great accomplishment. What percent would you gotten great accomplishment?
I'm going to guess with
like
this
90 plus.
No, but I'm guessing with this group it was probably 40%.
It was 55% great accomplishment after I started sharing some stats on how rare 2020 games are in the NBA. Then people started realizing, and then they were fighting me over the intent of my poll. I'm the one who made the poll, fuckers. So the intent of the poll was, do you think 2020 is a great accomplishment or should be the norm? Because people have too high of expectations for Deandre Ayton. They see him do it once, they're going to need him to do it again and again and again and again. And when he doesn't, it looks like he doesn't care. I think you tweeted something like that as well, Greg. People are going to blame him for not caring if he doesn't follow up 2020 with another one. So I wanted to see people's mindsets, and they were arguing with me all day long about the intent of my own poll, and then saying, well, and then there were a few people who go, no, he should be averaging 2020. No, nobody ever. There's been 50 years since no one's averaged 2020.
Yeah, it's the number of games that somebody has 20 points, 20 plus points, and 20 plus rebounds is minimal. It does not happen that often in the NBA.
Now, 20 and 15, obviously, yes, you can do this. 20 and 12 average over a course of a season, 24 and 12 doing a Karl Anthony Towns kind of line. Obviously, yes, you could do this, and you'd still be one of the top 5 centers in the league doing that. But to expect even more, and then some people were even tweeting back at me, well, based on what that guy in Dallas is doing, he should be getting 2020 or I'll never be happy with him. Well, okay.
That's a you problem. That is not a DeAndre Ayton problem. And the fact that he puts up 20 and 20 in that game against the Knicks, youngest ever to do it in any incarnation of Madison Square Garden. All 4 of them they've had. Youngest player to ever do that. The second youngest now, Hakeem Olajuwon. And then he was the youngest
in that location.
In that building, yes. Yeah. And then
also the youngest son too, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like that was a historic game for a guy of his age, and then he follows it up with a game that arguably was just as good. Sure, he didn't hit the 20 rebound point. He had 15 against Boston, but it was just as good of a performance in that game as well. So it's a no-win situation for DeAndre Ayton. We've talked about it because his name isn't Luka. Nobody, I'm not going to paint with a wide brush, but there is a certain faction of Suns fans, and particularly on Twitter, that are never going to be happy with what this guy does unless it's historic every night simply because of that. Get over it, all right? The Suns didn't choose that guy. It's Ryan McDonough's fault, all right? We get it. It was a mistake. I think we all can admit that if you were going to go back and redraft again, that nobody's going to take Deandre Ayton 1 knowing what we know now. But that's A, not Deandre Ayton's fault, and B, the reality is we can't get in a time machine and go back and fix that. So you've got to watch Deandre Ayton, have high expectations, but have realistically high expectations, not just ridiculously high expectations of this guy. What we've seen over the last 2 games gives you a glimpse into what this guy could become. And you have to find a way to be okay with it. Otherwise, you are going to flog yourself for the next decade about this stuff.
Exactly.
So what I missed, guys?
So I'm pretty happy. We'll just say that.
What did I miss? I had to get up for a moment.
Really? You missed the whole old and young man yell at Twitter. That's all.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Old and slightly less old man yell at Twitter, right? When you look at the age of some of these people on there. So,
you guys ready for the stat of the week?
Stat of the week.
Stats.
Hey, that's sort of like a poor man's Basketball Jones right there. Thank you, guys.
Or we could do the timeline does songs for all these, so Dave and I could start singing too. Stat of the week. Stat of the week. There we go.
No, that's all right. Great job, though, guys. I appreciate that. I'll try and dub some background music in when I'm doing the editing for this.
And
so I do want to give credit where credit is due. Matt Peterson, actually, I got the stat from him. The Booker, Ayton, and Bridges trio has the 3rd highest net rating in the league right now. That's with a minimum of 150 minutes played. SGA, Schroeder, and Paul over on
Oklahoma City.
Yes, thank you very much. 30 points a game. Kawhi, Harrell, and Beverly with the Clippers, 29 points, which, by the way, I did not realize that Earl Watson was a member of that coaching staff. And
Earl Watson's a member of the Clippers coaching staff?
Yeah. Who knew?
I think you're wrong. Excuse me while I stare at my phone for a moment.
I might be wrong. Please correct me if I am, but I thought I saw him on the bench. So Booker, Ayton, and Bridges, though, 28.7 points a game.
That's
Booker,
a
Ayton,
plus
and Bridges,
28.7 net rating, yes.
Yes. Has been really, really, really good. Which kind of leads me,
Booker and Ayton, period, have been very, very good together. I'm very happy. Last year, we hoped to see this kind of synergy between the two of them, using each other to draw defenders away from each other. Obviously, Booker trying to feed Ayton for the lobs and for the drives to the hoop and all that. I think they're doing really well, and it's going to continue to get better.
Have you guys missed Oubre over these last few games? Because I have not.
Look,
yes, we missed Oubre because I had to watch that freaking 3-point guard lineup that nobody can score. Yes, we've absolutely missed Oubre. Oubre is great. I think you can't have enough NBA players. And when you're out a couple of NBA players, to say you didn't miss them because the Suns won a couple, great. But Kelly Oubre is necessary on this team, and I think we obviously have enjoyed the results. But they need Kelly Oubre back. Just take the sunglasses off, dude.
Before I get to Kelly Oubre, I think Tim is just racist because Earl Watson is not on the coaching staff of the Clippers. So
who did I see?
They have Tyronn Lue on the bench, Sam Cassell. They do not.
He might have had floor seats.
He could have. He
lives
in LA.
Oh, it was. I'm sorry. Who Sam?
Sam Cassell?
Yeah, definitely. I thought they look like.
No, they don't.
Look anything alike.
Oh my God!
One looks like E.T. and
You're
the other
making
one.
You're making it worse. The only thing they have in common is they both were tied to the Suns organization at one point for a very brief period of time. Let's just we'll move away from this and act like it didn't happen.
Move away. Okay.
Dave, you're a jerk for saying Kelly Oubre should take off the sunglasses since the dude's in concussion protocol and light hurts heads of people that are in concussion protocol. So
that makes sense.
You're being a dick.
Can I give a shout out to Kelly Oubre for a second?
For wearing sunglasses? Yes.
No. The dude took the elbow to the forehead in the second quarter, I think it was, of that Atlanta game, and he stayed in the whole freaking game. He's missed 2 games since with a concussion, and he went 4 for 16. He contributed to the Suns losing that game, yes. But that dude never says he's tired, never says he's hurt, always plays, is always available, busts his ass. That he was seeing 10 Hawks against him instead of 5 is because of that elbow to the head, and I hope that guy gets... He's not going to get fined. That was just a mistake. But man, that sucks for Kelly that he got into a concussion, got a concussion from that.
Should we be applauding him for that?
A warrior staying in the game, absolutely.
Should we be applauding him for that, or be concerned that the Suns training staff didn't realize he had a concussion?
Well, yeah, there's that. I mean, you should be looking at a dude in the eye, and if his eyes are going 2 different directions, you got a problem.
I mean, I get it. Kelly Oubre seems a little weird, but I'm guessing you could still tell he has a concussion. So,
is concussion, and help me out, is concussion protocol, does that necessarily mean you have a concussion or that you might have one? So
well, you're showing symptoms. So you miss it. You've got to go through the way I saw it described was you've got to wait 24 hours and then do a test. And then if you're completely clear, you can be cleared after that. But otherwise, every 24 hours, you have another test. And so I'm guessing because the Knicks game was the next, was too close for him to have made it. Made it into the Knicks game. He's still showing signs, or he would have played in the Celtics game. So he's got to be still showing some signs of effects on that.
We've bemoaned Suns Twitter here, but there was a great moment when people found out he had a concussion, and somebody tweeted, Lindsey Smith, did you do this to him? Because she's the one that inadvertently hit him in the head with the microphone a week or so back in the post-game interview. So I think Twitter does every once in a while at least make us laugh. So, but anyway, I think. Do I miss Kelly Oubre? Yes, I miss his energy. He is a spark plug that brings something on the court that most guys don't have, but that does not mean I think he necessarily should be a starter again when he comes back. I think he's perfect for what this bench is missing. You need that energy. You need that scoring. And Mikal Bridges is bringing something to the starting lineup that in terms of the defense that you haven't seen. And then offensively in that Celtics game, all of a sudden, magically that hitch is out of his shot for the most part, and he's connecting on threes again.
Yeah, you just got to give Mikal contested threes, and he'll make them because he doesn't have time to throw that hitch in there. Yeah. Guys, we're doing recency bias here. Kelly Oubre deserves a starting spot on this team. Plus, if you want to play him with the second units, you can play him with the second units. That's totally fine. After the first 5-minute stretch. Mm-hmm. So it's just a matter of who starts and who finishes. And the best overall Suns lineup for finishing games has Oubre and Bridges and Booker out there with Rubio and Ayton. So I miss him.
I mean, my favorite. I saw it on Suns Facebook where someone said that Kelly Oubre should become the 6th man so he could just eat up on opposing benches. And I just thought, do you watch the Suns game? Do you not realize that's exactly what they have him do? They have him start as well, but that's what they bring him back in to close out like the first
not
quarter.
Really great being the only dude who can score out there because then he puts his head down and tries to drive into 3 defenders. Right. So I'd rather have him be opportunistic in cutting and slashing and taking open threes from other offensive players that are out there.
Don't lie though, the ball does move a little bit better when Kelly's not out there with the starters, but that's not. I get what you're saying, and I'm just bringing this up because according to local radio and certain people on the internet, benching Deandre Ayton turned him into a monster on the court, like a beast. So maybe that could do it for Kelly Oubre. Maybe he could average 30 if Monty benched him and then brought him back.
Is it possible that Deandre Ayton just needed a few games to get his sea legs under him for the NBA?
But
is it quite possible?
Look, in the chat, I do not hate
I'm
Kelly
rolling
Oubre.
my eyes to the ceiling right now.
I do not hate Kelly Oubre. I actually am really enjoying his game. He's taken a step forward this season. There are still times where there's lapses. There's times where he pounds the ball on the ground, but the guy is a human exclamation mark, right? He brings this energy, like I was saying, that nobody else does out there. Some of his dunks just are enough to swing the momentum in a game, and he's been very impressive at late game three-pointers as well. I like what Bridges does on the defensive end. To what Dave said, yes, lineups with both of them in there make more sense to me, especially with this gaping wound that is your power forward position right now. So,
hey, throw some love to Dario at a double-double last night. Nobody even notices.
Well, Dario did have a lot of big moments that were under the radar last night or Saturday night in Boston. So sure. you're true. So you're right in that. But
straight and true.
There is no backup power forward, especially with Frank on the shelf. So, yeah, I love it. Michael Rhodes in the chat says Espo is on the concussion protocol. So, perpetually.
Hey, I just saw somebody, some non-Suns fan just tweeting out, I think it's a non-Suns fan, was just tweeting out, hey, just throwing this out there. And it's a basketball reference comp of Frank Kaminsky to Kyle Kuzma. And Frank Kaminsky's numbers are better across the board.
Yeah. But Stephen A. wants us to trade Devin Booker for Kyle Kuzma.
No, here's the thing. I tweeted this out. I did not think that was a ridiculous statement. He said that the Lakers should trade Kyle Kuzma for Devin Booker.
Yes.
If
you're Lakers, the Lakers should.
They should. Yeah, 100 times out of 100. I don't even see the debate in this.
That was going to be my Dunc-y award this week, Stephen A.
But Kyle Kuzma and some other players, and maybe a pick.
Maybe a pick. Because what you want is the Lakers' first-round pick, which is basically going to be a glorified second-round pick, is what you want for a superstar. Sure, yes, the Lakers every time should make that trade. The Suns.
Oh, hey, one final note on that game. I think that right there is going to make coaches put Devin Booker in the All-Star game. By the way, be a big win over Boston in Boston, 39 points. We haven't even talked about Booker yet. He was once again one item shy of a triple-double. He had 10 rebounds and 9 assists to go with his 39 points on only 20 shots.
Well, Dave,
that dude is in what?
I was just going to say that there's a reason why we haven't talked about Devin Booker, his performance in that Boston game, and that is because the national media, rightfully so, cannot talk about anything except for the fact that Marcus Smart hit 11 threes in the loss.
Yeah, because they hate the Suns. Okay, not hate.
And they'd rather show over and over again a fall-away three-pointer with an 8-point lead with less than a minute left in a game, but it looked pretty. So they'll show that from a guy from another team over Devin Booker hitting threes to win games. Yep.
It's Devin Booker has done everything you could ask, and he now has that almost triple-double that everybody loves to call it. It's either a triple-double or it's not. But
he's had a few, actually. He's had 4 or 5. He's come up one short. Poor guy. I wish it would go for him, because that's one of those things you just notch on your belt kind of thing.
But he had moves in that game.
He has other notches on his belt, just not that one.
You watch some of the moves in that game, though, and he's taken 2 Celtics on, doing spin moves, hitting fadeaway jumpers off those moves. That they're things that just regular stars aren't doing. Somebody said, what's the difference between Devin Booker and Kobe Bryant right now? And I said, it's simply he hasn't thrown any teammates under the bus or had legal charges against him. I mean, that when you look at it, he's doing the kind of moves that you saw Kobe do in mid-range.
And he does. People don't talk about it enough. He has always
modeled himself after Kobe. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And he's
unfortunately,
taking
he's
over
modeling
things.
his three-point shooting after Kobe too.
But you know what? he's still efficiently scoring without relying on that 3-point shot, and it's proven to work as of late. They're 7-4 in their last 11 games, which obviously matches that hot start that they had. If you forget all the crappy play in the middle, this team looks amazing. But I'll take Devin Booker scoring 39 and not relying on the three-pointer and making the kind of moves that he did against that Celtics team any night. It's entertaining, and you're seeing this guy just dominate other players, dominate double teams. Just imagine what could have been if he played with Team USA, or he didn't complain about double teams in those pickup games over the summer. I mean, he could be so much more.
Mm-hmm. If they just wouldn't have doubled him in those pickup games, he might have dude,
I got
even better season.
I totally got like full court press trapped in a pickup game a couple weeks ago, and I was bitching about it, and I felt like Devin Booker.
Yeah, except minus the skills, and you're like 20 years older than him. But that's
no. But when you're in that environment, you're like, come the hell on, guys.
Hey.
Like this isn't the environment for it. It's a pickup game. You don't need to be double teaming people for the most part, trapping people in pickup games, right? So obviously the stakes are a lot lower. I'm not nearly as talented. Nobody I'm playing with is as talented, and it's just a game as opposed to Devin Booker actually needs to prepare for these things when it actually is games that mean something, right? So
let me play the Joakim Noah role. Grow a set, Tim. All right.
Yeah. No, that means.
So let me just go back really quick to Kelly Oubre for a second.
Sure.
The dude is second on the team in scoring, second in assists, or second in rebounds, leads the team in steals, second in blocks, leads the team in 3-pointers made this year. We miss him.
Okay. Final segment. Actually, no. Second to final segment. All right. We're going to call this one. Suns trade rumors. And should Devin Booker go to management for more talent around him? About 15 minutes left on the show. Let me ask the first question. Is it time to deal Baines for assets? If they can get back a longer-term backup center. I know we've talked about it before. Your guys' thoughts on potentially trading Baines for assets or a longer-term backup center?
Right now, What are you going to get for him, too? I mean, the way he's been playing lately, he's not setting the world on fire by any stretch of the imagination. So I would rather just hold on to him and see if you can recapture some of what he was doing earlier in the year, because that's going to benefit the Suns down the stretch. And I get it, he's an expiring, but I don't think you're going to get much right now for him. So why deal him? There's a better chance that he refines himself in this offense and helps you make a playoff run than there is that you're going to get a piece that's going to help you long term at center from it.
Well, and really, if you like the progress that Booker and Ayton are making this year, and if you want them to be your core of a playoff team in future years, you need guys like Ricky Rubio and Aaron Baines on this team this year. You can't just be punting out a guy who really is getting properly in the ear of Ayton and telling him where to be, and Ricky actually showing Ayton the spin move to clear yourself out of a guy who's trying to box you out, and then suddenly Ayton applied it in the next series and the next time down and got a rebound that he needed. These guys are great for Booker and Ayton. You can't be trading them away, or any of them away, just because you can get a future second-round pick for them, or maybe a longer-term backup center who also needs to learn how to play the game still and is not your vocal leader. They've got to have those guys. Ayton and Booker need guys like Baines and Rubio on this team. So no, you don't trade Aaron Baines, no matter how tough it is to watch him right now, because he's not making any of his threes. He looks a step short every single time down the court. I think he's going through a real slump because he played so much for the national team and then so many extra minutes for the Suns. I get it, but his voice, his help, his mentorship of Ayton you've got to have that, and you can't be trading it away. So definitely you got to keep Baines,
even if they could get value for him.
I know what you're saying.
It depends on what the value is. I mean, if we're talking a younger veteran player that can come in and fill a similar role, sure. But what team's gonna trade a valuable piece like that for Aaron Baines, who could bolt after this season? I don't see a world where you're trading him for something that much better than what you potentially have and the impact he can have with this group. So I don't see that. If you're gonna try to make a move, that's not where I see you likely making it. So
it's funny. You guys, no matter how many times I brought it, no matter how many times it doesn't matter. My opinion. I brought it up on the show. It
matters
always,
just as much as ours.
Nah.
I mean, not quite that much, but it still matters.
Right. I'm like 2/3 of the worth what your guys' votes are, right?
Okay, sure.
I don't know. I mean, Charles Scholar here in the YouTube chat, he's bringing something up that I brought up before. Other people have brought up before. I would trade Aaron Baines for Zubac potentially in 4 years of Zubac.
Sure, I would too potentially, but I don't see the Clippers doing that. I think they value Zubac and what they have in him. So why? Sure, if I could create any trade I wanted that brought something back for Aaron Baines, and the other team had to do it, sure. But I just don't see another team giving up something of value that you have under control for a longer period of time for Aaron Baines. And I think there's a better chance that Baines is going to have an impact for this team than whoever you get in return.
It's funny. So when I brought it up the first time, it was essentially Aaron Baines is playing too well. We don't want to trade him. And now that he's not playing as well, he's not playing well enough to get anything back. So at a certain point,
No, that's not my feedback. My feedback is he's too good on the team still, even though he's playing like shit. He's too valuable on the team.
I agree, Dave. I agree with that. I think he's part of the heart and soul of this team. Whether he's actually having an impact in the box score is irrelevant to me, because he's having an impact on Deandre Ayton and the communication of this team defensively, and that's huge.
What have you guys heard in terms of potential trade rumors coming up? Obviously, there's the ones we've already talked about. The Kevin Love. I saw some story about D'Angelo Russell and the Suns being in talks. But it
where'd
was
you see that story?
Some random.
I saw it. I'm not sourcing this because I saw the source and I thought, yeah, okay.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
How would that even work? I don't even. Yeah. Anyways,
there's probably a way, right? I don't have Trade Machine in front of me. Obviously, you would send back Tyler Johnson. You probably have to do Frank Kaminsky as well. I still think they need another $5 million-ish. They have to throw in, right?
Tyler and Kelly for D'Angelo Russell.
But come on, guys.
I'm just kidding.
They'd have to give up a lot for him. For sure. But obviously that rumor's out there, but you guys being closer to the team than I am out here in Florida, what have you heard?
Well, being physically closer can be helpful, but usually I did talk to James Jones a little over a week ago, and he said that the phone doesn't start ringing until right at the deadline. Sometimes you'll get a few early calls, like if you've got a definite, like, hey, I want to do this for that. And it can happen. Last year, they did the Tyler Johnson trade in the middle of January. So it can happen. And then this year, just a couple of days ago, there was a small trade. There's been a couple of small trades. But really, all the real chatter comes up in the final 2 weeks before the trade deadline. The trade deadline is February 6th. So around the 25th, 30th of January is when suddenly phones are going to start going. And as James says, everybody works on deadlines, and that's just the way it is. So if there is a trade, it's going to be one of those one-offs of people who know each other and they want to do a tit for tat kind of thing. That is for marginal players. The Suns should be definitely looking at that. Should definitely be looking at backup guards that can be more effective than Tyler Johnson and the ones we've talked about.
I heard Schroeder.
Schroeder. But I don't know if Oklahoma City's in a tough spot. Oklahoma City was supposed to set themselves up for the future this year, but suddenly their present looks pretty darn good with a 24-19 record in the seventh spot in the West. I mean, so they may not actually end up divesting during the season. Schroeder is excellent for them, and if they trade him, they're definitely giving up a playoff opportunity, I think. So I don't know that he would be available, but if he is, he'd be great for the Suns for sure.
I think Gallinari is a guy that they likely don't give up because of that, but I think Schroeder, since they have Chris Paul, they have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, if they can get a piece, that they feel bolsters another area.
But Tim just showed that they have the best net rating in the NBA as a trio. Chris Paul, Dennis Schroeder, SGA is a plus 30.8 this year.
Maybe that's why Monty Williams tried that 4-guard lineup.
Oh God!
With untalented 4 guards.
If you can get Schroeder, absolutely, you go for it. That's the kind of guy you'd want. Someone who can score and pass off the bench for sure. Absolutely, he'd be perfect. But that's why OKC likes him.
I'm in a weird mental state when it comes to this trade deadline. I could have, but everybody knows that. I don't have to state that out loud in general. But when looking at this deadline, there's part of me that's like, find a way to go all in. Find a way to just pot commit. Just push it all in. And the other part of me is like, just tinker a little. Find a backup point guard maybe. Just add a little something and see if you can sneak in. And I don't know where I land overall. I keep going back and forth between those two mindsets, and I guess it depends on what that big game is.
Won or lost the most recent game.
Yeah, that's really the case. After the Atlanta game, it's like, start selling stuff. Go into the if it doesn't bring you joy, sell it mentality. If you're James Jones, but then after the last 2 games, you go, well, you add a couple pieces.
Maybe just add a couple pieces and they can make the play.
It's like a bad relationship where you're like, well, maybe I can make this work. Sure, she wants to yell at me and threaten to stab me with an ice pick, but the last 2 dates have been pretty hot, so maybe we can make this. We can make this work.
A lot like my ex.
Hey, I mean, so you sit there and you're trying to convince yourself.
My sleep, but
the one who still does our little segments in our pod.
If I decide to put it on, that one. What about we've talked about power forwards a bit. Obviously, we have some people right now in the YouTube chat. I know your opinion on this, but Julius Randle with the Knicks.
What about Jeremy Grant from Denver?
Oh, love
it. But they aren't. Yeah.
Hey.
But he hasn't fit real well.
I don't think Denver's going to make any trades either because they're not big on making trades. They're one of the few teams who came back with exactly the same people they had last year. But
and I think
Go ahead.
I think they value him. I think they value Grant.
Yeah. They value Jeremy Grant. They also value Malik Beasley, even though those guys aren't getting much playing time. And they want to find time for Michael Porter Jr., who needs to get more time because he's pretty talented as well. So it's possible, but then why would they do a favor for any other team in the league during the season? I don't think Denver's going to trade away they have a really deep, talented team, and others benefit if Denver wants to give away a Malik Beasley or a Jeremy Grant. But I just don't see him doing it.
I don't think you get him cheap. I think you'd wind up having to slightly overpay with that, but it may be worth it. It just depends. Again, I can't decide. You remember, and this may be too old of a reference for a lot of people, but the Two-Face episode in Seinfeld, where depending on the lighting, his girlfriend looked really hot or really ugly. That's where we are with the Suns. Depending on the lighting, I could go either way here, and I don't know what it is.
We need to darken the lights then. It's easier that way.
Maybe Orlando will say, you know what, we don't want Aaron Gordon anymore.
Oh, stop. Tim, you hate Aaron Gordon.
Hey, but
I don't. I want him as a player. I'm tired of talking about the fact that they might trade basically their all-star
player. Should they get
player.
Aaron Gordon? What do you think, Tim?
What the Suns should do is the Suns should trade Tyler Johnson for Aaron Gordon.
There's a thought.
Okay, Stephen A. Yes, the Suns should. Would Suns fans be as fascinated with Aaron Gordon if they hadn't had a front row seat to watch him to watch him play in college. Like, and so they watched him in college at U of A, and then they saw him in a dunk contest. I mean, that's basically what most people have seen of him.
Really good as a backup point guard would be T.J. McConnell.
Yeah.
Another U of A grad.
Right. Anybody that played.
I'm uncomfortable with any TJs. So
how about the Suns go get Lou Williams, huh?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, we could throw Tyler Johnson back to them for that.
Apparently, one of the other Suns podcasts, Landon in the chat said one of the other Suns podcasts suggested going to get Bogdan Bogdanovic from the Kings. Yeah, if the Kings want to make a stupid move,
there is a chance that the Kings are okay. They could lose him. The Kings have a max that they're allowed to pay Bogdan. I'm pretty sure that still applies even after he becomes a free agent this summer. And so they could be outbid for him. Now, whether you want to pay...
Why do they have a max? Can you explain that?
There's something about that. I don't know. I got to look it up again. I didn't do the research.
Is it the contract the Suns originally signed him to?
It's possible that, it's possible that restriction gets lifted if he becomes unrestricted this summer, because he will. But during the extension, the extension was not allowed to be that big. Like, it could only be 11, 12, 13 million a year, something like that. And Bogdan turned it down because he thinks he can get more in free agency, which he absolutely will be able to. It's possible Sacramento at that time can pay him the regular rate, like the going rate, but they have competition. Still, though, he was probably gonna make more than Kelly Oubre, and in free agency. So if you acquire him this spring, then you're giving up assets plus paying him a big contract in the summer. The Kings would probably be willing to look at trading him, but the thing is, he also wants to start. And one of the reasons he was unhappy at the beginning of the year with the Kings, even when they thought they were going to be in playoff contention, is he didn't necessarily want to come off the bench the rest of his career. And with the Suns, are you going to start him with Devin Booker? He's not a point guard. He is Devin Booker's backup. He is a wing backup. So I don't know that he would want to stay in Phoenix either long term if he wants a starting job. So it is possible that Bogdan Bogdanovic would be available, but you're probably going to end up overpaying for 2 months and a prayer.
My prediction is the Suns are going to overpay for somebody. I don't know who, but I think we're going to be sitting here at the deadline and go.
Suns acquired Bogdan Bogdanovic. I would be extremely excited. I just don't.
Especially if they could get him for Marquise Chris.
Are we ready for the Dunc-y Award?
Oh, I am. Like I said, I thought about giving this to Stephen A. this week because I don't know what the hell that train wreck was when he was making that trade suggestion, but good on you, Stephen A. But enough people, nailed him for that one. So I'm going to go with.
He wasn't wrong though.
It was an asinine take, right? Yeah. So at Dynasty The Rock, who, in all fairness, has been a fairly nice guy on Twitter, but this is a pretty rough take. He tweets, "I believe the mentality of Suns Twitter contributes to poor player development. This is why we suck at developing young players. What has Ayton done to deserve a starting spot?" There's so much wrong with this tweet. I don't see how the mentality of Suns Twitter has any impact on player development. It's usually crappy player development coaches and a system that wasn't set up to bring in a wealth of young players that were ill-prepared for life in the NBA and not giving them a support system. It has nothing to do with young and middle-aged basketball nerds tweeting their upset takes about Dragan Bender or Marquise Chris or Deandre Ayton that impacts player development in any way. There's just no way that has any impact on it.
If Twitter had an impact on player development, then there would have to be some positive examples too. And frankly, Kyle Kuzma would be better than a 34% three-point shooter at this point. Because Twitter loves Kyle Kuzma.
Alex Caruso would be a god if NBA Twitter had an impact on player development. So
there is some truth in these guys are 20-somethings, and they are going to spend 24/7 on their phones. Absolutely. These guys do see the negative takes. They do see, but the thing is, as a player, A, your teammates are telling you this, and B, you got to have a little bit thicker skin than to wallow in those kind of takes. What you end up doing is just having a negative perception of media because you're going to blame media for getting that stuff out there and poisoning the well, for example. So all that ends up happening with negative social media attention is that players don't want to talk to anybody who comes from there. So that's about it. But I don't think it really impacts their actual development opportunities in the NBA. No.
There's one guy, maybe Dragan was impacted by it because he was tissue paper soft, but the love I was trying to provide to him and Rhett Reese as well on social.
He didn't follow you.
We were trying to lift him up. So, but congratulations.
Hopefully Frank Kaminsky does.
Well, Kaminsky Cove is still. I'm keeping
I think
the tiki torch is burning.
Mentally strong enough to be able to not worry about what Twitter says about him. I mean,
any guy that wears a denim outfit
back to Arizona after that Final Four where he kicked Arizona's ass.
Well, and anybody that wears a denim outfit with a cowboy hat to a fashion show run by NBA players,
anyone who
has
can
some
go over
cojones.
18 on threes and then makes 1 3 and he's fanning himself. I mean, the dude's good. He's got the confidence.
At Dynasty The Rock, congratulations. Enjoy your Dunc-y award. It comes with absolutely nothing and the perks of, well, at least me verbally embarrassing you on the show. So enjoy.
And on that note, so we will be back again next Saturday. Maybe we'll do a midweek at some point in our lives. We don't really know yet. But from all of us here at the Sun Solar Panel, Dave King, Greg Esposito, myself, Tim Tompkins, appreciate you guys waking up so early with us. And make sure to leave that 5-star review if you are listening on the podcast.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. Talk to you next time.
Later.